Okay. Okay, guys. A warm good morning to one and all. I welcome you all to a webinar on work life at Amazon by Mr. Sri Pravan Paturi, System Development Engineer 1 at Amazon. And I would like to invite Mr. Sri Pravan to take over this session.
Hi everyone. Um, I'm expected to switch on the video or
You can.
okay. Okay. Um, Good morning everyone. Um, I've um, I've joined Amazon as an intern, actually as a data engineer intern, as part of the campus placements at our college. It has been quite the journey from there to this system development engineer role that I'm working in. So yeah. With the work from home culture that has been there since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, it has been the work life has definitely become quite simple in the sense that I wake up, I write some code for the company, some task that I have, and I and go back to sleep. It's as simple as that. A long story short, but I'd also like to talk about maybe how I got into Amazon, and if that helps anyone who wants to, who aspires to get into Amazon, and what we do at Amazon and why it's interesting, fun, whatever. So, and the work life before the pandemic and how the pandemic has changed things, but how Amazon has been resilient in terms of handling things. Um, so so how I got into Amazon is through this data engineering internship program. For the internship program, there was an online round initially, and then they screened us, and then there were 2 rounds of interview. So in the first round, since it was a data engineering internship, in the online round also it was very much focused on the aspects that are required for data engineering, like SQL or big data questions, etc. And then there were 2 rounds of interview where again we were grilled on SQL and any other aspects that were required for the particular team. So this is another culturally another thing that I personally like at Amazon, which is that there's no particular team that is completely handling all the interviews and handling all the screening. Most of the interviews, especially at the full-time level, goes completely by team. So if a team has a certain requirement, the team itself holds an interview and they interview you for that particular team's requirement. So there is no set standard, as in if you're like a data engineer, you must know these things and you will 100% get into Amazon. So depending on the team's requirement, for example, our teams uses SQL a lot. So our team expects everyone to understand SQL, everyone who is trying to get into the team. But many other teams also use things like a Scala, Spark, and some other big data tools. So they expect you to know that. So there is no set standard. Usually in the job requirements itself, they talk about what the team's expectation is and what the team's requirements are, and it is very well mapped to that particular requirements. There's no generic data engineering standard across Amazon. That is one thing. So that's how I got into Amazon in the first place. And then we had the internship, and the internship is also quite an interesting experience. So it was 11-month internship. There are many internship programs. There are basically, I mean, in terms of duration, there are many types of internships that Amazon offers. So there are some colleges that don't allow internships beyond, for example, 3 months. So Amazon is also now trying to offer those kinds of internship, like very short duration internships. But usually it has been 6-month internships and 11-month internship programs. I was part of the 11-month internship program. So basically, my entire fourth year was completely. I was also parallelly working on my college work and my internship at Amazon. So in these 11 months, the way it worked for us is in the first 2 to 3 months, even you're allowed to, you're given ample time to understand the tools that is used by the team and how they work or whatever. And then that is another interesting learning curve that anyone joining Amazon would have, even if he comes from another good reputed company, whatever, he'll still have a learning curve in terms of learning many internal tools. So there are many Amazon only internal tools that are quite powerful, and yeah, I mean they help you do your work much better than you would otherwise. So usually there is this learning curve even as a full-time employee. Even if you're shifting from some other company to Amazon, there's at least a learning curve of a month where you have to learn all these internal tools. And then in our case, since it was an internship, they gave us a little bit more time, so it was like around 2 months or so, and we were able to complete understanding these internal tools. And then they asked us to uh, then they basically started giving us projects. And the way even projects work at Amazon are quite interesting. There is no set deadline, or since we are not delivering it, especially unless, for example, you are in a team. So there are AWS teams which have solution architects who build even products for other companies. So Amazon, though it's a product-based company for the most part, they also do some amount of service for others, wherein in terms of building AWS solutions for other companies. So if a company wants to have a custom solution made for them using all the AWS services, the solution architect usually has to sit with them and complete something. So in those cases, you do have like a strict timeline, whatever, because there is a customer out there who is trying to help you, but who has a requirement and you have to fulfill that requirement. But otherwise, for the most part, you don't have a set deadline. Amazon has these leadership principles that are supposed to be presented by every employee. And even your promotion or your growth at the company is always judged by how well you present these leadership principles in your role. That's and one of the core leadership principles is ownership, and that's what is expected even in terms of projects. There's no set deadline in terms of like you have to complete this by whatever, but you are expected to take ownership, and you are expected to, even if you are the person who is even establishing the requirements, etc., you are expected to even come up with the deadline of when you're going to complete with this. So you are like a complete owner of the product, even though you might be owning a really small part of Amazon. Given the scale of Amazon, you will be a complete owner. I mean, for your product, for your project, you are the owner, and you are supposed to come up with the deadline, come up with the right requirements, everything. So that's how it works. I was basically taken into the customer service business intelligence team. So what our team does is, so you guys make a phone call to Amazon, you guys send an email to Amazon, or somebody sends maybe even there is a feature within the app to chat with Amazon, or somebody tags Amazon's social media networks and they reply. So Amazon has to serve customers through all these different channels. So how well are we serving these, and how better can we serve these customers to drive the insights related to this, to come up with insights related to this is what we do in our team. So we basically provide certain reports or data related tools that we create ourselves. So as a system development engineer in particular, I write software, maybe web development, some web platform, something where somebody like the management guys who basically add new customer service agents or remove new customer service agents, transfer them from one team to another, etc. those guys take our insights, the insights that we provide using from our software, and plan customer service to provide the best customer service. So it also, so our users are these managers or these they're called planners or analysts. So planners or business analysts who basically plan how to map these customer service agents to different calls and from different sectors, whatever. So in this planning, we provide the software that helps them basically derive insight, drive this planning based on those insights. So the users for us are those planners and analysts. So we are in fact expected to we sit on the same floor with them. To that extent, we are supposed to basically always be in touch with the user. So even though, for example, in our case, it's not directly user facing. I mean, basically the software we are creating will not be used by anyone outside Amazon, right? But still we are expected to deliver it at the same standard, in the sense that our users are those planners or analysts, whoever, and we are expected to constantly keep in touch with them, understand if their requirements are changing, give them the best product so that they can ultimately deliver the best customer service, and then that results in best customer experience for the end user. So I think that's how Amazon works in general. Even though you're expected to take ownership of a small component, the ownership that you take for that small area will result in a larger, better customer experience or customer engagement. That's what is expected at Amazon, that you have to ultimately deliver the best customer experience. And for that, every team has to take ownership and work on their software or whatever they're working on, being an owner of that product themselves. So to the again, to the extent that even like our managers or our senior managers are given a set budget. So even though we are for example, even though we are part of Amazon, for all the AWS products we do pay money. So our team indirectly pays money. That creates accountability. So the managers or even every team member is expected to constantly analyze how much is it costing us. Though it does not directly maybe translate into the same costs as an external user, even for Amazon, ultimately to maintain that hardware, it costs something, and to create accountability across this whole employee chart, they basically have these costs and budget, everything. So the team runs as if it's its own startup, right? So the team, every team is like its own startup, and they're trying to build their product and sell it to, maybe in our case, within we are selling it to all these planners and analysts. It is almost like that. So every team, even the teams that create products that drive internal software like ours, also are expected to take ownership at that level, like as if we are our own silo, and as if we have our own product and users and all of that, which is great, which is one thing that I love working at Amazon as part of my work life at Amazon. So yeah, and so even as an L4 engineer, so basically there is, within engineering there are some, so there are some levels that you're mapped to within Amazon. So based on which your base salary, etc., are also decided, and some other aspects of your Amazon benefits, etc., decided. So in those levels, all engineers, the basic engineering standard starts from L4. So an SDE 1, SysDev 1 in my case, or a data engineering 1, DE 1, any one of these guys are mapped to, in terms of levels, they're basically an L4 employee. So even as an intern, you're considered to be an L4 employee, and even as an intern, you're considered to be as much a full-time employee as you are otherwise. So because you're an intern, the only concession you get is basically, and the expectation from you also differs a bit, in the sense that you are expected to learn more. It's not about ultimately delivering the product, but you're expected to learn more about the internal tools and come to the standard of a full-time employee of the same role. For example, if you're a data engineer intern, you're expected to, through the internship, learn more about process, you're expecting level of knowledge or the same level of understanding as a data engineer L4 full-time guy who is joining at Amazon. So they expect you to learn more, and the delivery requirements, etc., are less stringent for an intern. But in terms of ownership or in terms of how you contribute, etc., there's no change, or there is no. They don't treat you as some intern because you're an intern. You are whatever. So in terms of even benefits, etc., an intern is given all the benefits of a full-time employee, maybe except for the salary, of course. So that's how it works. I mean, at every level, even as an intern, when you're just starting out, you're expected to be an owner, and that's how your growth also works. As you take ownership for this, if you're an intern, if you're in an internship, if they see that you're basically taking ownership well, and if you're delivering good customer experience and you're constantly learning things and all of these, so there are some leadership principles, as I was earlier mentioning, and if you're constantly demonstrating these leadership principles, you're converted to full-time. And again, within full-time, I've seen people convert from L4 to L5 within an year or even less sometimes. So it all depends ultimately on demonstrating these leadership principles. That's what I personally love at Amazon. So there's no set path, 100% set path. You have to work for 2 years in order to convert from some level to some other level. There's nothing like that. So at every level, there is some expectation from that role. For example, as an L4 employee, you're expected to, basically, if a task is given to you, you're expected to deliver that task particularly well. At an L5 level, whatever, you're not given directly a task sometimes even, but you're basically asked to come up with the requirements yourself, and your impact is at the team level or whatever. And at an L6 level and so on, your impact even basically has to be at an organization level and so on. So the impact of your projects, or based on the impact of your project and based on how much ownership you're taking, that drives your growth. So you're promoted based on that, not based on some standard metric, whatever. Basically, you're expected to demonstrate these leadership principles well, and then that's how you grow. So that's another thing that I do like at Amazon. And as engineers, I also see that there is a lot of flexibility. For example, even during our internship, for example, if anyone is worried about whether I'm in my college and I want to do an internship at Amazon, but I'm also a person who is very academically leaning, so I'm worried that my marks might be hindered by the work at Amazon, whatever. At least as far as I know from the review I have from my friends as well, all teams that take interns are expected to give them ample time for their academics as well. So even within those 6 months or within those 11 months, whenever you have exams, whenever you have some requirement from your academic life, they do give you time, that they do give you leaves, and they do give you that ample time. So, and even as a full-time engineer now, the leave policy, etc., are all very, Amazon is trying to become even more obsessed with even improving employee lives these days. So they're trying to set better standards in terms of even providing leaves, etc. And so, for example, in the case of COVID, they've given like a really so if you are contacted with COVID, or if you come in contact with a COVID patient, etc., they are giving you like a 14-day paid leave. Right, so employee health is being considered, is put at the pedestal, and is taken care of very well. Even in terms of your work hours, it all depends on you, right? That's what I'm saying. So it's like you're driving your own product, you're running your own startup, and you're one of the co-founders of a startup. Even as an L4 employee, you have to, if you're able to look at yourself like that, then you'll be a great employee at Amazon, as far as I understand from my current experience. So your work hours, etc., are also all very flexible in terms of you're the owner. I mean, ultimately, you have to deliver the best customer experience, best product. That's all that matters. You work an hour daily to deliver that, and the rest of the time you do something else. Maybe it doesn't matter. Ultimately, delivering the product, delivering the best customer experience is what matters. There's no set. You have to work 9 hours until you log 9 hours in. You're not paid in the same or whatever. So that also, in fact, for that matter, translates to even overtime or whatever. Right? So like the way overtime is treated also, it's all in your hands. I mean, as an owner, especially starting from the L4 level, you are considered like a full owner of whatever you're doing. So you you can take the amount of hours you require for it. If you're taking a little bit more, you're taking a little bit more. If you're taking less hours to do the same work, you're taking less. Does not matter. Ultimately, deliver the product, deliver the best customer experience for whoever you're delivering it to, which is obviously another thing anyone would love at Amazon. So even though you're an employee, you're also a partial owner. And it's not just in terms of how they're treating these projects, etc. Right? So all L4 employees, starting from the L4 level, all engineers are given restricted stock units. So you are given a certain share of Amazon. That's also, so you're basically a partial owner of Amazon, both in terms of having some shares for yourself, which are, so they're restricted in the sense that you are the owner of the stocks after a few years or whatever, which is also so to basically drive long-term ownership. But ultimately, you are being given stocks, and that's how it works. So you are both an owner financially in terms of basically if you are doing well, and if ultimately because you are doing well, the company does well, your stocks also rise, and you are also basically a beneficiary of the profits or dividends that the company is making. So both financially and in terms of how you work as a engineer on your project, at every level, it's a full ownership and customer obsession driven culture, which is the best thing about Amazon. But the flip side is that can also be taxing, right? For someone who wants to not take ownership, just wants to deliver what he's given, it can be very taxing. So I'm given so it's all about how well you take up this responsibility. Ownership is always responsibility, and if you're taking up this responsibility well, you're doing well. Otherwise, it's taxing. So if you think you suit to a culture where you are an owner, where you are responsible for your work, and you're always customer obsessed, then Amazon is the best place to work. Otherwise, it's not. And I mean, there are, of course, other perks like in general, the office culture is also good. So there are the general benefits, like for food, you're given some credit or whatever. And so that's there. And you're also given some, like, there are some activities where you can, in your office, if you were in the office, you are given some time to basically engage. So even in the times of COVID, how Amazon has been resilient to the pandemic and how they're trying to engage employees even during this pandemic with the lack of all the office space where you have all these whatever fun activities or indoor sports or whatever, is by even engaging them through some like me calls or whatever where there is an activity. So even like, so a day off is given whenever, like, so recently there was a COVID surge, right, and the second wave basically, and then it is again now going down. So during the whole COVID surge, there were many Amazon employees also who were affected and all of that. So they were all given ample time to basically treat themselves or whatever. And also the other employees, because we are all mentally affected by the situation, they gave us ample time. They are constantly giving us like mental health courses, yoga, online yoga sessions, whatever, online well-being, mental well-being sessions, and all of that. So that's one aspect of basically helping the employees adjust to the whole pandemic situation, and also beyond that, like to make it even fun while being at home, is to have some activities that can be performed online, some online multiplayer game, something. So yeah, so the managers who are basically, so at every team there are managers and there are like these individual contributors, right? So if you're like an engineer, you're called an individual contributor. This is the usual term that they use. You're an IC or a manager. So as an IC, you're expected to basically deliver your product. You're an owner of the product. You're delivering that. That's all. But as a manager, you're also expected to do this, right? To take care of all the individual contributors that are reporting to you. So that includes maybe making it fun for them even while going through this pandemic. So they have been trying to conduct some online activities and all of that to make it fun even while working at home. So yeah, overall it's a great experience to work at Amazon. And again, I mean, since I think many of your students and what you would like, what I would say you should like also is to constantly learn, right? So we are at the, even consider myself, I'm still just 1 year or 2 years into this engineering role. So at this point, I think the best thing that you can do is learn as much as you can, right? So Amazon also gives you that experience. So again, since you are an owner and you have this siloed experience where your team is its own company within Amazon. So what happens is, even in terms of languages, what programming language you can use, what tools you can use, etc., you're given complete flexibility. Uh, Again, it has a flip side and like a pro and con, which is, so basically our team, for example, uses Java, JavaScript, Ruby, Python. So it uses Ruby, Python, and for that matter, there are some legacy scripts that are even written in Perl. So we are using all these languages for scripting. We also use shell scripting for that matter. And for the other software also, we use Java, we use Ruby on Rails for some of our web software. So we are using so many tools. So the flip side or the con is that you are given ownership. And if I'm given ownership, for example, my favorite language is JavaScript, I take up this project or this some task, and you're not expected to basically use any set language. That's what I'm talking about. So yeah, maybe I like JavaScript, I complete it in JavaScript, but later for somebody else who is coming in, it's hard to basically navigate through maybe so many languages. But yeah, I mean, the teams are also mostly supportive, and you're able to quickly adjust to having many languages on board or whatever. So yeah, so again, it's all an ownership driven culture. So even in terms of learning, if you think you have learned some tool, for example, in our case, it's business intelligence. So you think Tableau is the best tool for this use case. You think Power BI has the best features for this use case. So Power BI, Tableau, for these things, you also have a license costs, right? So you're even given time to basically your manager and you maybe discuss together and see how much the Tableau license costs and how much budget your team has. You present the same to your leaders and they basically give you permission. I mean, they give you the budget to, you tell them why Tableau is the best tool for your use case, and they allow you to use Tableau. Does not matter. So there are teams who use Tableau, there are teams who use Power BI, there are teams who use QuickSight, which is an AWS tool. There are teams who use, for example, our team uses a tool called MicroStrategy. So there are teams who use every kind of tool that is available. Does not matter. You are the owner. You are supposed to come up with whatever you want, even the tools you want, the language that you want to use. All that you're expected to do is present the leaders or present the higher management about why this is the best tool or best use thing for your use case. There's no set standard, or there's absolutely no forcing people into using a certain language or whatever. So it's brilliant. But overall, Amazon, for anyone who's trying to join Amazon also, I would recommend that you have some sound understanding of Java at least, because even initially as Amazon started out, Amazon was a very highly Java driven culture. So slowly they have become open to so many languages, being like as part of giving ownership to each of these individual silos, and given the scale of Amazon, the number of teams Amazon has, they basically, I think practically they use every programming language that is out there today. But for the most part, again, many of the tools are that are available internally, and there are some basically tools that help you write better code, or there are tools that help you quickly develop like some service in your service oriented architecture framework, something. So there are, all of these tools are mostly targeted at Java, because of this legacy of starting out with Java largely. So that is there, but otherwise you're given heavy ownership of what you're doing, so you can basically write in any programming language. And I would recommend anyone joining Amazon, or for that matter any other company, as a fresher, I would recommend that you learn as much as you can, learn as many things as you can, so that it makes your transition to any other role, anything else in the future, quite easy. Just to wrap this up, and then I'll open it up for question and answers, and you can maybe ask me any questions, is how does growth work, and like ultimately what are you going to do, right? So this is all that has happened. I mean, this is my current experience and how it has been until now. But what is the road ahead? If I am joining Amazon, what is the road ahead? So there are basically two paths. One is the IC path, the individual contributor. You can continue to be an individual contributor until like even maybe 30 years later, 40 years later. That's also a path that is available. So what happens in that path is, for example, in my case, it would be System Development Engineer 1, then System Development Engineer 2, System Development Engineer 3, and then so after System Development Engineer 3, there is a role called Principal System Development Engineer. Until System Development Engineer 3, it's all very team oriented, or you're expected to basically drive the larger product of the team, etc. But starting from Principal System Development Engineer level, or Principal any engineer level, is you are expected to even drive the standards in general at Amazon. Come up with maybe conference ideas, come up with project ideas in general that benefit Amazon, everything. So you become like this larger part of driving all kinds of software standards and software requirements at Amazon in general. And you're also given a lot of basically time and ownership, to the extent that I mean, even as an L4, people start doing that. And so if someone is very research oriented, it's encouraged, research is encouraged. So you're allowed to write research articles, and you can publish them on your name. And you're also, Amazon, if you're doing something that's team specific, and you're innovating something new that for your team, then you're also asked to file a patent. You're encouraged to file patents and Amazon helps you in the patent filing process. So even if you have the tendency to become a researcher, or someone who would like to have some innovations on his name, you can do that while being an employee at Amazon. You can write these research articles, you can file these patents. And usually for principal engineer, you're all expected to even do this. You're expected to basically come up with something entirely new, something very innovative, some new research altogether, and so on. So that's how the principal engineer, or even beyond that, you have like distinguished engineer and so on. So like the distinguished engineers are also often, so even at the principal engineer level, starting from that level until distinguished engineers or senior distinguished engineers, whatever, you also have some people under you who are reporting to you. But for the most part, you will still drive your own individual projects. You will still work on your patents, whatever, you'll work on your research projects. But you're also expected to basically help them in innovating or whatever. And many of the distinguished engineers are also, for that matter, the distinguished engineer is at that level where you're also a distinguished engineer and you're also maybe a vice president of some larger organization within Amazon, etc. So that's how it is for an individual contributor. If you're like an innovator and if you like to do some research, whatever. And there is the managerial path. So starting from so engineering 2, so system development engineer 2 or whatever, you can become a manager at that level itself. So you can be a manager like an L5 manager, L6 manager, so on. So you have like a manager of that particular team, manager of the maybe some group of teams, etc. And then you have like a senior manager level. Usually that consists of the entire collection of teams that's working towards something. So in our case, for example, the customer service business intelligence team. So you're driving the insights required for customer service. So there is a collection of teams that are all doing this. And the head of this collection of teams is usually a senior manager. Over that, you have like some director of some larger area, like planning, capacity planning for customer service and so on. So it goes on and on until maybe CEOs of different wings. So there is the customer, like the customer driven aspects, right? The retail of Amazon, which includes the actual e-commerce marketplaces that Amazon has. Then there is also things like Prime Video and Kindle, etc. So all of these different units are considered to be different companies of their own, which are all part of this larger conglomeration called Amazon. So that includes AWS, and that includes the internal finances departments and all of that. So there are all these different wings within larger groups of companies or groups of teams within Amazon, which drive different areas. So those people are all considered to be CEOs of those individual units, and then there is the CEO of the entire company, which was Jeff Bezos until very recently, and now it's the AWS CEO has become the CEO of Amazon. So yeah, basically until that point, the managerial scale keeps going on. So you become a manager. So you're managing your product and your team, and you're expected to plan well. And basically, even though every employee takes ownership, there's also, so even as an owner, you would require some help in terms of planning your finances, planning, maybe coordinating with all the different users, coming up with this larger vision of where your team is heading. That's where the managers come into place to help all these different owners, leaders, who are all individual contributors and who are working on their own individual tasks, come up with a larger vision for all of them and help them deliver better. And also, like I said, to take care of the well-being of the employees is also a huge part of what a manager does. That includes even planning their growth. So if you are performing, for example, if you're performing really well and they want to promote you, that's all driven by your managers. So the managers are constantly looking for opportunities to promote people. They're looking for opportunities to see if an employee is going through some mental issue or maybe physical ailment, anything, to take care of their whole well-being even beyond the workplace and to help them grow within Amazon. So all of this and driving the larger vision, that's what managers do. And that's how you can grow at Amazon. So from an engineer, you can get converted to either a manager if you like that area where you're less interested in maybe engineering individual aspects of a product and you want to manage people and help them grow. Or if you want to have something of your own, if you want to innovate something, if you want to do some research, whatever, you can go to the principal engineering path where ultimately you end up doing a lot of research, etc. So I think this sums up, for the most part, this sums up how Amazon works. So I think we have 5 more minutes left. I'll open this up for question and answers. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Sure. Bro, there is a question. Why didn't you get the data engineer role after your internship?
Sure. Okay. So while we were, so our team, so our team is customer service business intelligence team, right? So our team is filled with data engineers. So for the most part, our team is constructed of all the tasks, everything are mostly all around data engineers and data engineering only. But there are use cases. For example, if you're just trying to use Tableau, if you're just trying to use Power BI, whatever, then a data engineer is good. And in fact, there is a role called business intelligence engineer as well, who are well equipped with the knowledge of using these tools, the business intelligence tools like Power BI, Tableau, MicroStrategy, whatever, and they create reports and they plan around whatever the requirements are. But there are also use cases where you want to maybe manage the administration. For example, your databases are taking too high of a load. You want to somehow automate the management using some scripts. Maybe you want to develop your own tool like Tableau, whatever, not maybe to that extent of maybe the same features as those tools, but your own web dashboard, whatever, where you have more flexibility, which is something on which I am working right now. So for those kinds of use cases, we also have this role called system development engineers. So I'll also taking this as an opportunity, this question as an opportunity, I'd also like to differentiate between SD or software development engineer, which is what you usually hear when somebody says that they're a software engineer at Amazon. And if you ask them what their role is in particular, it's usually software development engineer. And this is a unique role called system development engineer, which is where you write software, where you are also writing software. But the software development engineers are expected to have like a general knowledge of solving problems using software. So even your interview has data structures, algorithms, and all of that, and you're basically expected to generally solve those, right? But for system development engineers, it is very team specific in the sense that, for example, sysdevs in our team are expected to have a really good understanding of SQL. You have to have a really good understanding of SQL, and you're also able to develop software beyond SQL, like just using SQL, using maybe Java or whatever. You're able to develop some website of your own, some app of your own, application of your own. So for those use cases, you have a system development engineer. So in our team, what has happened is after we joined as a data engineer intern, they basically were looking for what kinds of skills do we have, right? And even during the interview, we must have demonstrated some skills, whatever. And based on our resume, our previous experience while we were at college or whatever, and how we performed within the team. Based on that, they either mapped us to the data engineer role or system development engineer role. So I think in my case, they basically noticed that I had a lot of independent projects and that I did like writing software in general, web development, which were all required skills for the system development engineering area. So they, instead of basically converting me to the data engineer, they converted me to system development engineer as a full-time engineer. But all the others who have joined with me, along with me from our college, from the same college, they've all been converted to data engineers for the most part. And in another team that I know of, they were also converted to SDs, for example, software development engineers. So it entirely depends on the skill and requirements. So even starting out in a different internship program, you can end up in a different full-time engineering role depending on your skills and the requirement of the team. They basically give you the choice. So I was asked if I wanted to become if I wanted to go the sysdev route or if I wanted to maybe do data engineering stuff. So even as an intern, actually, they gave me projects which were mostly related to system development engineering, even though I was technically called a data engineering intern. I was given those kinds of tasks, and just based on that, they judged me, and they thought I was a good engineer. That's how it worked. Any other questions?